Breaking tonight, the U.S. president declares a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. The deal apparently brokered following this after Tehran targeted a U.S. base in the Middle East. We break down the state of play. Scorching temperatures and stifling humidity.
It's really hot and they don't have any air conditioning.
Ontario and Quebec in a dangerous heat wave.
Things can get very severe very quickly.
And the Canadian star of the NBA.
Every kid dreams, but you don't ever really know if it's going to come true.
Matching records of basketball legends Michael Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal, and he is just getting started.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. From the moment U.S. bombs pummeled Iran's nuclear sites this weekend, the fear was a war no one could control. But then tonight, breaking news, Donald Trump, in a social media post, unilaterally declared the war over. So let's get straight to Washington. Paul Hunter joins us. This surprise announcement, Paul, came just hours after Iran launched a direct attack on U.S. forces.
Yeah, what a whirlwind tonight, Adrienne. Just as the world wondered whether this was about to spiral into a much broader, bloodier conflict. Indeed, the U.S. president, as he does, dropped word on his Truth Social platform, effectively that it's all over. A ceasefire, and within hours, a full end to the war, although tonight, a complication. Reports late this evening from Iran's state news agency, there's no deal if Israel doesn't comply. There's a lot to unpack here, but why don't we begin with Donald Trump's post?
Here's what dropped just after 6 p.m. Eastern. Congratulations to everyone, he writes. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire beginning in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. After 12 hours, he continues, the war will be considered ended. The official end, he says, comes around 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. Said Trump tonight. Separately, he expects this to last, quote, forever, calling it a wonderful day for the world. All of this just hours after Iran retaliated for that massive strike by U.S. forces on Iranian nuclear facilities early Sunday. Multiple rockets fired from Iran said to target the giant U.S. military base outside Doha, Qatar. But these images underline Iran's response, ferocious as it seemed, was in fact tepid. Here, anti-missile defense systems intercepting all but one of the Iranian missiles. Trump calling Iran's retaliation weak, and noted Iran itself had given a heads up the missiles were en route, Trump even thanking Iran for doing so. Trump's vice president, J.D. Vance, was on Fox News tonight speaking to that, underlining again the U.S. imperative that Iran not ever be in a position to build nuclear weapons. That was the stated goal of Trump in all of this, and per J.D. Vance, it remains so. Here's a clip.
But here's the question. If Iran is desperate to build a nuclear weapon in the future, then they're going to have to deal with a very, very powerful American military again. Our hope is that the lesson that the Iranians have learned here is, look, we can fly a bunker buster bomb from Missouri to Iran completely undetected without landing once on the ground, and we can destroy whatever nuclear capacity you build up. I think that lesson is what's going to teach them not to rebuild their nuclear capacity.
Vance adding, Adrienne, the world is now in a different place than it was a week ago, and he may well be right on that.
So, Paul, what else do we know about exactly how the deal came about?
Well, setting aside Iran's late word that this is a deal only if Israel complies, we do know it seems to have all come together just this afternoon. There's reporting it was brokered by the Qatari Prime Minister, and further reporting, quoting a diplomat briefed on the talks, that Donald Trump put J.D. Vance on it and that he played a role. But beyond that, it gets murky, at least for now. This is all playing out, Adrienne, even as we speak.
Indeed it is. All right, thanks for that. That's Paul Hunter in Washington. So let's go to the region now. Chris Brown is in Jerusalem. So Chris, Trump's announcement was very vague about when the ceasefire was supposed to kick in.
Well, his post about that ceasefire came right as both Israel and Iran were actually in the middle of attacking each other. Israel had planes in the air, was really pounding targets in Tehran, and Iran had drones over the northern Golan Heights. This had already been one of the most violent days of this war, even before Iran launched those missiles at the base in Qatar. There had been heavy strikes during the day in Tehran, and notably many of them were on regime institutions, including the headquarters of the Revolutionary Guard and a prison that is infamous for detaining opponents of the government and torturing them. Iran also sent a couple of waves of ballistic missiles to Israel as well and spread them out over the length of the country as if to try to cause as much inconvenience as possible. Israel says it manages to intercept about 90% of Iran's missiles, but those that hit Adrian do cause a lot of damage.
And so all that, Chris, just adds to the confusing signals, it seems, about whether a ceasefire was really even possible.
Very much so. We have not heard directly from Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, in days, but his officials had been saying right up until Trump's post that Iran would not negotiate anything while Israel was attacking. And Israel had been demanding that Iran stop its missile launches. Benjamin Netanyahu has been signaling all weekend that Israel is close to meeting its war goals, essentially ensuring that Iran could not build back its nuclear program nor its ballistic missile capabilities. And these attacks on the regime targets in particular that we saw earlier seem designed to send a message to Iran that it could not afford a long war of attrition with Israel and would pay a heavy cost as long as it continued to fight. Adrian.
All right, thank you. That's Chris Brown in Jerusalem tonight. So since this war between Israel and Iran began, officials from Global Affairs Canada say they have helped or are in the process of helping Canadians escape the region. That includes more than 60 people getting out of the West Bank in Israel this morning to Jordan, with 100 people booked for a charter flight out of Jordan to Athens. Global Affairs has no presence inside Iran, but are stationed in bordering countries, helping about 100 Canadians get visas necessary to cross from Iran into Azerbaijan. Now, in the shadow of the Middle East conflict, Canada is deepening its ties to Europe. The two sides signed on to a security and defense pact. It comes ahead of a critical NATO meeting. Kate McKenna explains from Brussels.
At a military cemetery in Belgium toured by the Prime Minister, Canada's long-standing relationship with Europe is clear. Nearly 350 Canadian soldiers are buried here. Now Canada has signed a new deal aimed at bringing Canada and Europe even closer.
As the saying goes, hard times reveal true friends.
Today, this is a new era of cooperation, and this will make us both more resilient and more prosperous.
The pact seeks to make it easier and more affordable to buy weapons and ammunition.
And as we build up those resources, we can do those in a way that's complementary and mutually reinforcing.
With the long-term goal of Canadian involvement in a major procurement initiative called Rearm Europe.
This partnership will allow us to strengthen our preparedness faster and better, to invest more and to invest smarter.
Canada's looking to Europe as its closest ally has been less reliable. Mark Carney is still trying to negotiate a new deal with the United States in the middle of a trade war.
The right deal is possible, but it's nothing's assured.
Next up on Carney's Europe trip is the NATO summit.
The main item on NATO's Tuesday agenda will be raising the defense spending target to 5% of a country's GDP. It's a big hike as Canada and other countries struggled to meet the previous target of 2%. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Brussels.
Here in Canada, a dangerous, record-breaking heat wave is gripping much of Ontario and Quebec. And as you can see, a huge section of the U.S. as well. Temperatures hit 35 degrees Celsius in Ottawa and Montreal today, 36 in Toronto, and the humidex in some places rose to 46. Now, the extreme heat is expected to stick around through Tuesday. Sarah Levitt takes a look at how cities are helping the most vulnerable stay safe and the particular concerns about kids in school.
In the stifling, humid heat, these Torontonians are keeping positive.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, nothing better. It's been a long winter.
Much of southern Quebec and Ontario are in a heat wave, with temperatures well above 30 and the humidex making it feel between 40 and 45 degrees.
It is kind of exceptional by its intensity. We are pretty much in the 2% of the maximum temperature we can see climatologically at this period of the year.
The weather, enjoyable for some, is worrisome for others.
We can expect that people who are more at risk, elderly, people with chronic diseases, people experiencing homelessness, people with chronic mental health conditions, can have effects after a day or two of heat.
Officials are urging people to stay out of the sun, stay hydrated, and if they can, find somewhere with air conditioning. Cities like Montreal and Toronto have opened cooling centers and are distributing water to those unhoused. Among the vulnerable are children.
It's very hard to understand a decision like this.
In Quebec, teacher unions requested this last day of school be cancelled due to the heat, to no avail. Many schools have trouble keeping cool. Old infrastructure makes installing AC nearly impossible, not to mention the cost.
It's impossible to open the windows completely. Most of them don't have blinds that close so that the sun don't enter. Also, the ventilation is absent, if any.
In Toronto, kids weren't exactly excited to be stuck in sweltering classrooms.
And it's really hot and they don't have any air conditioning inside. The only fans in the classroom point to like one person.
People are also heading to malls and libraries to cool down. But here in Quebec, many of those will be closed Tuesday for Saint-Jean-Baptiste Day. The city says some cooling centers will be open and listed on its website. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
The eastern half of the U.S. also being warned about that extreme heat as temperatures climb to some dangerous highs.
We remind people you have to take heat seriously. It is nothing to play with.
From Washington to New York to Chicago, people flock to water to cool down, but getting there could be bumpy. In Nebraska, South Dakota, and Colorado, all reported roads buckling in the heat, as did Missouri. When this one popped up, it sent a car airborne. So if heat can do that to the roads, imagine what it can do to your body. Christine Birak takes a look at exactly why extreme heat is so dangerous, even deadly.
If you're thinking it feels hotter than it did years ago, you're right.
Canada is disproportionately heating up more than the rest of the world.
Scientists say warming across Canada has been about twice the global average, with temperatures rising 3 to 4 degrees in parts of this country. And the hotter it gets, the harder your body has to work to cool itself.
When the temperature rises, we try to get rid of that extra heat in the body faster. So our blood vessels expand.
To keep your core body temperature around 37 degrees, your heart pumps faster to push more blood to the skin, which helps you sweat. As sweat evaporates, it sucks heat out of your body. But when heat or humidity gets too high,
we can get into a situation of heat exhaustion relatively quickly.
It stresses the heart, and dehydration strains our kidneys.
How quick are we talking?
Oh my gosh, it can be as little as minutes.
Scientists say physical activity often leads to heat exhaustion in hot weather. Untreated, it can progress to life-threatening heat stroke.
That can cause problems in your brain, that can cause problems in your heart, that can stress out your cardiovascular system, and things can get very severe very quickly.
Heat kills more people worldwide than any other form of extreme weather, especially when overnight temperatures remain high.
When you have 24, 25 degree temperatures through the overnight hour, that doesn't give you any relief, which doesn't allow your body to recover from that heat, and you just stay elevated and warm throughout the day and throughout the overnight as well.
During heat waves, those who are young, elderly, pregnant, or have a mental illness and are on certain medications are at highest risk. Symptoms like dizziness and nausea need to be taken seriously. To stay safe, drink water, seek shade, and monitor those who may be struggling to keep cool. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
In northeastern Ontario, emergency crews are clearing roads and restoring power after a terrifying storm that left some people trapped. It hammered the town of Manitoba and nearby provincial parks, where campers were suddenly under siege by wind and rain in what may have been a tornado. Nicole Williams shows us two couples who will never forget the frightening ordeal.
Everywhere you turn in Samuel de Champlain Provincial Park in northeastern Ontario, it looks a lot like this. Downed trees and debris, difficult to get through without a chainsaw.
Nothing, warned us of something this magnitude was on its way.
Kaylee and Colin Murphy speaking to us from hospital after getting caught in the storm. They were sleeping in their trailer with their 2-year-old daughter when suddenly
everything just got so loud and a tree fell on our trailer and I covered her with my body, and Colin was in a different part of the trailer and he got knocked through the floor, and that's when he hurt himself.
I got hit by the tree, and then they pushed my right leg through the floor. And I mean, that's when it fractured my femur in 4 places.
It took hours for emergency crews to get from the highway to those trapped in the park. A nearby arena opened as an evacuation center. At the height of the storm, more than 15,000 customers were without power, and nearby municipalities declared states of emergency because so many roads were washed out or blocked. Researchers now assessing the nature of the storm and the extent of the damage.
It's really early to tell whether a tornado or a downburst may have occurred. In fact, it may have been a combination.
Oh, we're still in shock.
This couple caught outside when trees started falling down around them, saying they feel lucky to be alive.
The sound of these trees breaking, the feeling of the ground shaking, it's something that will stick with me for the rest of my life.
With camping season just beginning, officials say it is important to take care during severe weather. If there is shelter nearby, get to it. Or if you are stuck outside, stay away from trees and take refuge in a low-lying area. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Manitoba's wildfire state of emergency is over.
To be absolutely clear, this is still a very serious situation. We're going to have to keep working together as thousands of our fellow Manitobans make their way home.
That includes more than 5,000 people from Flin Flon. It is expected they can go back this Wednesday. The province-wide state of emergency was issued last month, but the Premier says the situation has improved. There are still more than 20 fires burning. 7 of them are out of control. Well, memorial services were held today to mark the 40th anniversary of the Air India bombing. It was June 23rd, 1985, when a bomb planted on Flight 182 exploded, killing everyone on board.
This anniversary is a reminder to governments around the world that we must condemn terrorism and fight it at every turn.
Canada's public safety minister joined Irish and Indian officials for a ceremony at Cork, Ireland, near the site of the tragedy. Similar gatherings were held today in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. And tonight, we are hearing directly from Canadians who lost family members in that disaster.
We love him, we miss him, and we wish he was here.
The work being done to make sure they're not forgotten. Earth's largest camera provides brand new perspective.
Ruben's just gonna show us so much of the universe we've never seen before.
How these pictures will help map out the universe. Plus, Canada's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander takes another step towards basketball immortality.
The storybook season is complete.
We're back in 2. Here's a close-up look at the ugly, putrid algae known as Sargassum. It is stinking up beaches and scaring off tourists across the Caribbean and beyond. These new images from the Dominican Republic show just a fraction of the record 38 million metric tons recently documented. Well, tonight we can show you some other images. These are images of deep space like no one in history has ever seen. The world's newest and most powerful survey telescope is peering into the cosmos and promising to unlock secrets. Thomas Daigle shows us the pictures and the excitement.
Space has never looked quite like this before, at least not from Earth. These are among the first images captured by this planet's biggest ever camera. Part of the new Vera Rubin Observatory in the Chilean mountains. Funded by the U.S. government, the project promises a groundbreaking survey of space.
This observatory represents a giant leap
in our ability to explore the cosmos and unwrap the mysteries of the universe.
While telescopes like James Webb provide detailed images, think of the Rubin Observatory as taking a panoramic, ultra-high-definition time-lapse of the universe. Enough to impress a room full of would-be astronomers and astrophysicists in Toronto.
It's the first Apollo mission, but for ground-based astronomy.
The hope is researchers right here at the University of Toronto will be able to use that new data to learn more about everything from supernova explosions to what's known as dark energy.
Consider those spots whizzing by, all of them newly seen asteroids, with Rubin discovering 2,000 of them in just a week.
Rubin's just going to show us so much of the universe we've never seen before. It's like opening a trapdoor.
Professor Renee Halajic wrote her first paper on this long-promised telescope nearly 20 years ago.
It's going to basically give me so much data that I can understand what is driving the acceleration of the universe, which is obviously the biggest question out there.
See all those different colors? They provide new insight into the mind-boggling distance to those space objects.
Many of those galaxies are 5 or perhaps even 10 billion light years away and have up to 100 billion stars in them.
The observatory will map the universe for 10 years, providing never-before-seen views, all of them out of this world. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
Amazing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also amazing, has put a bow on his historic season.
Every kid dreams, but you don't ever really know if it's going to come true.
What's next for the Canadian superstar? Plus, with the U.S. president now declaring a ceasefire, where can Iran go from here?
I think the risk that it could build a nuclear weapon is still very live.
And Canadians who lost loved ones in the Air India terrorist attack plead for more awareness here at home.
Canadians, they need to know that these were people that were in their community.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Basketball superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a lot to celebrate tonight. The Canadian led his team to an NBA championship yesterday, and in doing so, he finds himself in some rare company among the game's legends. Jamie Strachan explains why.
The storybook season is complete.
Canada's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has done it all for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander off the glass.
Add an NBA championship to the list.
I wouldn't have rather done it with any other group in the world. It feels good to be a champion.
For the man known as SGA, it's the finishing touch on a season for the ages.
As a kid, you dream, and every kid dreams, but you don't ever really know if it's going to come true.
On top of the championship, Gilgeous-Alexander won the league MVP, playoff MVP, and scored the most points this season, something done by only 3 others: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, and Michael Jordan.
He impacts every game and is a great player that is still growing and still improving, but I'm just so impressed by him and what he can do on the court.
Those who have known him since he was a teenager growing up in Hamilton say all of it was achieved through hard work and endless hours in the gym.
I know how much it goes into it, and if people knew how much, they wouldn't be surprised. But when you see all folded out in real time, it's something that it's a work of art. It's a masterpiece, and to be honest.
It was like a hallelujah moment, something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Just remember all the days going to practices and driving to tournaments.
Basketball fans everywhere have enjoyed this historic season by SGA, nowhere more so than on courts here in Canada.
It just comes to show that Canadian basketball came a long way, and that we have a bunch of good upcoming athletes.
All of this leading to a potentially massive payday. SGA can sign a contract extension this summer that could be worth nearly $400 million, one of the most lucrative contracts ever. And the core of the Thunder is young and only getting better, the beginning of a potential dynasty with a distinctly Canadian flavor.
Knocks down the purse. What a special year it's been.
Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Saskatchewan companies are betting big on helium as demand grows in ways you may not have guessed. But Canada relies on the U.S. for a key final step, Alexander Silberman asks if the lingering trade war might change that.
In the heart of the prairies, thousands of meters under the soil, companies are betting big on helium.
It's all new to this area and it's all exciting. We're just scratching the surface on our exploration and production at this point.
North American Helium is the largest in a field of about a dozen Canadian businesses, trying to turn a profit on a wide-ranging demand for the gas. It's needed for MRI machines at hospitals, manufacturing of semiconductors, and to launch satellites into space.
So that's the first step in our process is the membranes.
The natural gas flows from wells into largely automated processing plants. Helium travels from deep underground through these pipes and tanks to get purified. But the final step of the process, turning the gas into a liquid, happens in the United States. That's something producers are hoping to change.
We've got great resource potential.
Amid a trade war, the industry argues there's a growing case to decouple its supply chain. But it says the first step is tax credits available to other critical minerals.
For the Canadian domestic use in hospitals here, we have to ship it across the border, become liquefied, and bring it back to Canada. A Canadian liquefaction plant would eliminate that problem.
The global market now has an abundance of helium, but despite shrinking margins, a Canadian liquefying plant would be worth it, according to this expert.
I think it sends a signal that, that Canada is in the helium business for the long haul, that they, they're more than a feed gas supplier to U.S. Sources.
With Qatar, the U.S., and Russia top helium producers, Canada's advantage could come down to geopolitics as a stable supply for trading partners that could also lift up the prairie economy. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, near Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world, including a tragic Canadian anniversary.
This was Canada's 9/11.
40 years ago today, a terrorist attack killed all 329 people aboard Air India Flight 182.
What we now know is the biggest mass murder in Canadian history.
A new project memorializes the victims. But first,
the strikes were a spectacular military success.
After U.S. B-2 bombers struck Iran's uranium enrichment sites, the immediate question, now what? Well, today, the beginning of an answer, Iran's limited missile attack on the U.S. military base in Qatar and the U.S. president's claim of an imminent ceasefire. But in war, the enemy has a say, so what should the world watch for? The threat was loud and menacing. The Americans would pay for hitting Iran's nuclear facilities. So Iran launched missiles at U.S. bases in Qatar. They didn't do much except maybe symbolically, and by day's end, the U.S. president boldly declared there was a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. So is it really over? Take a moment. What kind of position was Iran in before the supposed ceasefire? Alan Iyer is a top nuclear negotiator.
Unenviable, certainly. I mean, they're being attacked by Israel. They've been attacked by the United States. Even before that happened, their economy was doing very poorly.
In conventional military terms, Iran was never a match for the United States or Israel. But it's always had other retaliatory options it could still call on whenever it next feels provoked. Like closing the Strait of Hormuz by laying mines in it. That waterway is sometimes called the world's most important oil choke point. About 25% of the globe's oil that's moved by sea goes through that waterway, 20% of liquefied natural gas. So close that strait, block those shipments, and the price of just about everything will rise. Iran has threatened to do it before, but never has. Since most of Iran's oil goes to China, closing the strait might be a disaster economically, so Iran may always consider it too risky a move. Those wary that any promised ceasefire will hold will want to keep an eye on the fate of individual ships in the strait.
Ships don't waste any time in these waters because they're carefully watched by the Iranian Coast Guard.
Iran has a pattern dating back to the 80s of seizing ships there under various pretenses.
Passage through the Gulf is becoming more and more dangerous.
It seemed to be using them as leverage. It held a vessel in April of 2023 for a year. And what about Iran's most notorious proxies? Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and of course Hamas in Gaza. How useful would those Iranian proxies really be in a prolonged fight now?
I think by Iranian metrics, they don't really necessarily have strong allies. Israel has already done such significant damage to Iran's proxies in the region that although, for example, the Houthis might try something against Israel, I don't think significant retaliation can come from any or all of Iran's proxies. Hezbollah has already announced, by and large, that it's sitting this one out.
To hear this, the temptation might be to say Iran has largely been defanged. But this started with a worry about Iran developing a nuclear weapon, and the American B-2s and their bunker-busting bombs may not have entirely dissolved that threat.
I worry a lot that Iran will still be able to reconstitute its nuclear program. Ultimately, I think the risk that it could build a nuclear weapon is still very live despite the airstrikes.
James Acton is the co-director of the Nuclear Policy Program at the Carnegie Endowment for Peace.
Prior to the US airstrikes, the US intelligence community reportedly told the Trump administration that if the US hit Fordow, the Iranian enrichment plant, then Iran would likely make the decision to actually build nuclear weapons. I'm deeply worried that decision is correct.
How would that happen with strikes the Americans insist were effective?
It was an incredible and overwhelming success.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
I can say to the American people with great confidence that they are much further away from a nuclear program today than they were 24 hours ago.
Notice the important caveat in the vice president's remarks there, because being further away from a nuclear program is not the same thing as being incapable of having a nuclear program. The head of the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization announced a new enrichment facility the day before Israel's airstrikes. It's unclear if it was hit. And as for the sites that were affected, look at the satellite imagery from U.S. defense contractor Maxar, showing a series of trucks and vehicles near the entrance of the Fordow nuclear facility before the airstrikes. That matters because among the most crucial elements to making a nuclear weapon, quantities of highly enriched uranium are, Acton says, easy to move and hard to track.
The Iranian highly enriched uranium, which is in the form of uranium hexafluoride, is typically stored in cylinders that are roughly the same size and shape as scuba tanks. The oxygen tanks for scuba diving. I am pretty worried that the first time we're going to know where it is if it's used in a nuclear explosion, in a nuclear test explosion somewhere in a desert in Iran.
You cannot militarily, kinetically eliminate Iran's nuclear program because that primarily resides in the knowledge of the Iranian scientists and technicians who work for it. So you can always rebuild eventually.
So after the U.S. president declared a ceasefire between Israel and Iran is happening, could diplomacy be back on the table? Up until this evening, it seemed hard to imagine.
Iran has said it will not return to the table as long as it's being attacked by Israel. Israel has said that it has no intention that it's in the midst of military operations. The table's been blown up. So how can you return to it?
Red lines. There's always talk of red lines in a war. They are set, they are crossed, and they shift.
I actually think when we look back, we will say the 12-day war was an important reset moment for the entire region.
And now a region holds its breath. A new archive has been created to remember the victims of the Air India bombing.
This is something that was born on their person, and those people are lost.
The ongoing reflection after the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. What's been called the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. A bomb planted on Air India Flight 182 exploded over the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 329 on board.
Terrorism is not something that happens somewhere else.
Now, 40 years later, an Ontario university has created an archive dedicated to the lives lost.
It's an obligation to make sure that those records are preserved for perpetuity.
Angie Seth spoke with family members about what the project means to them and their drive to keep the memory alive.
About a month before he left, he wanted to have an updated family picture. So he got us together and took us out to a photographer, and fortunately we have that. This is the one that hangs on in my mom's place next door.
Rob Alexander was only 15 years old when his father, Anjanut, died in the 1985 Air India bombing that killed all 329 people on board.
It's a surreal thing. You hear of these stories where, you know, someone dies suddenly and you never think it's going to happen to you.
Tell me about this one.
Just kind of a classic picture of the two of us. I can't remember what the joke was, but he got me laughing. Over the last 40 years, there has been so many ups and downs, mostly downs. It was really shocking that happened to my family.
So this is one of many boxes that you've received, pictures. A small room and a few boxes, home to the lasting memories for those who lost loved ones in the 1985 Air India bombing.
There are personal letters, official letters.
40 years later, they finally will have a permanent home, a historical record at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario.
And that's the co-pilots, and that's the badges. This is something that was worn on their person, and those people are lost.
Chandrama Chakraborty is a professor at McMaster, leading the project and a group of researchers trying to keep the memory of the Air India tragedy alive.
So the boxes have a history of memories, history of erased stories, histories of erased grief, but ongoing grief as well.
She took it upon herself to put together a Canadian archive of one of the country's biggest and yet largely forgotten tragedies.
The archive might offer some kind of a memory justice for these families, right? By bringing into public memory this suppressed history.
These archives that are now at McMaster University, what does that mean to you to be able to actually have something like that now available?
I think will help all the families that if there's just one repository of information, it will help keep that narrative together. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the country.
On June 23, 1985, 329 people, mostly Canadians, died on board Air India Flight 182 after it was bombed off the coast of Ireland.
There has been a terrible air crash off the coast of Ireland.
There were multiple investigations and a public inquiry.
I did not have a chance to search that airplane, and I believe that if I had a chance to search it, things might have turned out differently.
Major Canadian intelligence and security failures were exposed, making the tragedy that much worse for loved ones.
You can imagine what kind of condition her body was in, as many were the others. The plane was at 31,000 feet. It blew up. It crashed in the Atlantic. Condition of a body that I would never imagine, and unfortunately that's the image I have stuck in my head of my mom, is that picture of her and of her body.
Sushil Gupta was just 12 years old when he lost his mother, Ramwati Gupta.
She loved to cook. I remember her singing while she would cook. The way she dressed, the way she did her hair, her hand creams, certain smells that I do remember to this day. I think Canadians need to be aware that terrorism is not something that happens somewhere else and over there. It does happen here, but more importantly, it has happened here.
It is the worst ever air crash at sea.
But this is not a tragedy that resonates in this country. According to polling, the majority of Canadians know very little about the disaster.
There has to be multifaceted approaches at all levels, right? At the level of the government, at the level of the community. It should not be just the job of families to keep saying their stories again and again and again. Many of them are fatigued.
Canadians, they need to know that these were people that were in their community. There were so many kids on that flight, so many people who are working in their everyday jobs, like my father, with the public.
Given the government's mishandling of many aspects of the bombing, the families desperate for the care and attention it deserves have trusted Chakraborty with their personal possessions. What did that trust mean to you?
It's a gift, but it's a difficult gift. It comes with a lot of obligation because it is a gathering of memories and histories that families have preserved this long. And then they're willing to trust me with those boxes of materials, right?
The process of putting these documents into a digital archive is slow and expensive. Funding will run out next year.
It's an obligation to make sure that those records are preserved for perpetuity beyond my and other lifetimes. So as long as McMaster as an institution holds, I hope it will be there.
So when the body was recovered, he had some personal effects that were returned to us. He had his wallet.
For the families, these tangible reminders of the lives lost are vital to preserving their loved ones' memories.
Even his social insurance card was intact. We've learned to talk about him at certain times, and we keep his memory alive that way. I go to the cemetery often, just knowing he's there sometimes.
Be close to him. I can tell your dad was very important to you. You were very close to your dad. If you could, what would you say to him right now?
Obviously, we love him, we miss him, and we wish he was here. I hope he's proud of us.
And stories just like you heard there with Rob Alexander, so many of them the families have told me and shared with me over the decades, Adrienne.
Angie, we can see that you've been at a memorial service tonight for the victims of Flight 182. Can you give us a sense of what it's been like?
Very emotional, indeed. This is one of two. There's a memorial earlier today at Queen's Park that happened at noon. A lot of prayers, but a lot of people coming together to support each other and to continue that message of this was a Canadian tragedy, this is a Canadian tragedy, and it's something that should never be forgotten.
Angie, you've been covering this story for years. I understand investigators released some new details today about one of the Air India suspects.
That's right. They're talking about an individual by the name of Mr. X, and the RCMP now releasing this statement saying that they've been able to identify this individual. This was an individual that they say was involved in testing out some of the bombs just weeks before the actual bombing took place. This came out in the inquiry as well. The CSIS at the time watching this, but not being able to actually, categorize it because they had no camera, so they weren't able to document it. Certainly a major shortcoming, but the RCMP is saying that we've been able to identify the individual. They're not releasing this person's name as there isn't sufficient evidence to do so, but they have, Adrian said, they've confirmed that this person is deceased. A little bit of information as this investigation remains open. Something, however, though, a bit of an update on a 40-year-old case, really, that has rocked this country.
Indeed. All right, Angie Seth reporting from Toronto. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Up next, a very large bird of prey lands in some unfamiliar territory.
She definitely has a wingspan of more than 6 feet.
It's new Newfoundland residents. Next, in our moment. You are looking at a rare bird of prey, not native to Canada. It's known as a Steller's sea eagle, and the photo taken by a photographer in North River, Newfoundland. So the appearance of this bird, now nicknamed Stella, of course, has drawn in crowds of bird watchers and local residents, and tonight, Stella makes our moment.
It was just a monster bird, very big, with this orange-yellow bill, sitting up in a tree, black and white, huge, huge bird, even in the binoculars. My daughter said, "Lynn, do ducks sit in trees?" I said, "I have no idea what that is, but it's not a duck." And that's when we first met Stella. Stella, from all accounts, is one of the largest birds of prey on the planet. She definitely has a wingspan of more than 6 feet. I've also been told by one of the bird watchers that they're commonly found in Russia and Japan. And so if that's the case, if that's where she's from, she's a very long way from home. We have a mom and a dad and 2 eaglets in a nest across the river every year. Maybe she's thinking, well, maybe that could be a free meal. I like to think that she's just lonely and looking for companionship.
Man, you were right, Linda. That is no duck. So here's the deal. The eagles that she talked about are really not particularly pleased about Stella. She's noticed a few spats over the water, but we are all putting our money on Stella. From all of us at the National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.